All right, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson. My mission is to help trauma therapists be their incredible selves, to be human, to be real, not just a clinician. I'm a big believer in who we are is more important than what we know. And this requires cultivating authenticity, genuineness, and vulnerability, and that requires intention. You can learn more about my courses and workshops by going to thetraumatherapistproject.com. That's thetraumatherapistproject.com. Let's get started. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back to the podcast. Very excited to have back Dr. Leslie Ellis. Leslie, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be back.
Awesome. So Dr. Leslie Ellis is a leading expert in the use of somatic approaches in psychotherapy, in particular for working with dreams, nightmares, and the effects of trauma. She's the author of A Clinician's Guide to Dream Therapy, published by Routledge in 2019, and offers many training opportunities in embodied experiential dreamwork based on her book. She has a PhD in clinical psychology from the Chicago School of Professional Psychology with a specialization in somatic approaches. Her dissertation on using focusing-oriented therapy to treat PTSD for refugees with recurrent nightmares won the Ernest Hartmann Award from the International Association for the Study of Dreams. I mean, that's pretty cool. We'll talk about that, but welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So before we could dive in here, share with the listeners again who, if they didn't hear you initially on episode 446, where you're from originally and where you are currently.
I was born in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, but I'm an Air Force brat. So I had no fixed address basically growing up. And right now I divide my time between Salt Spring Island, where we just moved. And in the winter, I spend quite a bit of time in Palm Desert.
So, and what were we talking about here? Is that Canada? Where's Salt Spring?
Salt Spring is in Canada. It's the southernmost Gulf Island. So near the San Juan Islands. Yeah.
Okay. And just quickly, so your dissertation, that's pretty cool. That won an award. How does that happen?
Well, the International Association for the Study of Dreams likes to promote dream research and student research. And so they have every year at their conference, they invite people to share their dissertations. And mine was the winner the year I sent it in. And I think it was partly just, because it was so, for me anyway, it was a really, I don't know. I wouldn't say universally positive. I was about to say really positive, but it had everything in it because doing a PhD is really an exercise in perseverance, and it had its, sort of smooth parts and very difficult parts. But what I got from it has actually propelled my research and my thinking and my teaching ever since, because I just applied this focusing-oriented, embodied approach to working with dreams to refugees that had very severe PTSD and frequent nightmares. And it was a small study, but it was just very promising. It really showed how effective this kind of treatment can be. Some people had completely stopped having nightmares after decades. And the feedback I got from the participants was that they just felt empowered and they didn't really have a sense of control over their dreams before that. And so it really encouraged me to just keep going with developing the treatment and learning more about how I could help and staying on top of the research and teaching clinicians. And it's really evolved. It's become really my main focus right now, I would say.
How did you get, how did you get involved or interested in dreams and nightmares? Usually we hear dreams. We don't hear so much about nightmares, but how did that start for you?
I've always been interested in dreams. It's like I'm a big daydreamer. I really just like that sort of realm that's like between waking and sleeping and the fantasy world. I just kind of enjoy that space, that mental space. I think it's really generative. And then when I did my master's in counseling, when I wanted to become a therapist, I chose Pacifica Graduate Institute, and it's one of the few places really where you study dreamwork as part of your training. And I know now that most clinical programs don't include dreamwork as part of the training. And so it was a pretty big part of my learning to become a therapist, was working with dreams. And then I always use them in my practice. And so, yeah, I just kind of started right from the beginning of my training with working with dreams. And I couldn't imagine not doing it. I didn't realize, I think at the time, that it wasn't a mainstream tool anymore, that a lot of programs have phased out dreamwork. And I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to bring more training for people, because I feel like it's such a window into what matters to people. But then nightmares specifically, it's not because I have a lot of nightmares. I really don't, although my most profound dreams have been nightmares. It's that when I was looking for a dissertation topic, I wanted to do something related to dreams, but I wanted it to be something that clinical. And really the only dream related subject that's got a clinical diagnosis is PTSD or nightmare disorder. So I wanted to basically see if I could incorporate something clinical into and combine my interest in dreams and work toward, maybe developing a different kind of treatment.
So give us the kind of the overall view of dreams clinically. Because correct me if I'm wrong here. There are a couple of camps, right? I mean, dreams are, why study them? They're the kind of like the trash bin of, our psyche in a sense. And then, right, there's another perspective. I don't know if it's just the only other one, is that it is a rich, fertile ground. Help us understand.
Wow, that is a big question.
Yeah.
Well, I always like to point out that dream work and dream therapy was how the whole enterprise of therapy started with Freud and Jung, and that dream work was at the beginning central to the practice of psychotherapy. And what I think has happened over it's been 100 years, I guess, is that there's been just a shift toward more evidence-based, cognitive, measurable, time-limited approaches to therapy. And dreamwork is not that. It's really unique, the path that people would take. It's perceived as really complicated and esoteric. And so there are more than two camps. There's not just I think dreams are great to use as a tool, or they're not. But you could, I guess, look at it that way if you want to draw it along a simple line. But even some people who work with, say, cognitive approaches will use dreams as a way to understand people's beliefs about the world and how they're reflected in dreams. It's hard to generalize. This is a tough question, but I would say the people that truly value dreams really are in some way interested in depth, interested in the information that's implicit or that we repress, and that the part of that the therapist can do that would be most helpful is to support the person in understanding and unearthing those things that live under the surface. Mm-hmm. And so the subterranean realm and feeling like that's really important, versus someone who might say, I just want to know what you think and what you believe, and we can work at a cognitive level and we'll get the job done. So I think that might be the two camps is how I might describe them.
I think I may have shared this with you before, but there was a point when I was seeing a therapist who was Jungian inspired, and we did a lot of dream work, and it was intense. I mean, I found myself, I'm sure this is not surprising to you, but the more I tried to remember my dreams, the more I remembered my dreams, and I was writing down my dreams, and they were so abstract, and they weren't very literal. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I kind of want to get to a point where you can share with us an experience of working with someone and what you learned or what was able to be culled from their dreams. How does looking at our dreams help us?
Well, there's a way that they show us what's most important to us, I think. There's a lot of theories about why we dream, and some of the things that I feel like are seem really true is that when we're sleeping, we're processing emotion. That dreams are very implicated in our emotional life and trying to kind of work through emotion and temper it. And that so dreams reflect what's really gotten a big response from us. And the reason that they're abstract, as you say, or obscure, don't seem to make sense is that when we're dreaming, our prefrontal cortex, our rational thinking function is very damped down, and our ability to express things in clear language and in logical order, and our sense of time, all that stuff is sleeping. And so, including our ability to remember things really well, and our ability to, executive functioning doesn't exist very much in dreams. But what is still very awake in our brains is our limbic system, our emotional center, our visual cortex. We can picture emotions, basically. Mm-hmm. So we get the dreams are not trying to be obscure. They're just expressing themselves in what's the language that's available to them. So, and this is an idea from a very famous dream researcher named Ernest Hartmann. Well, the person whose name the award was named after. And he said that dreams are picture metaphors for the most prevalent emotion that we're sensing. And so if you see them as that, they a lot of them really make sense immediately. Mm-hmm. They're pictures of what we feel. And so in terms of therapy, if you're wanting to get an image for something that's really important and really up for you, the dreams supply that. And they often supply images of things that we maybe don't want to think about or don't want to talk about. They picture things that we repress. So they're very important material for the therapy process. And I can give you an example, and I often share this one because my daughter is willing to share it, and I don't like sharing client stories too much. But this one, she says, you can use this as an example. So she dreamt of this horrific image of hacking a woman to pieces, and she called me because this was really disturbing to her, and she knows I know a few things about nightmares, and so. What you do with an image like that is not take it literally. I always tell people not to take your, especially graphic dreams like that, literally, because dreams are just trying to get your attention. And sometimes that's the way they get your attention, is to make it very gory, and especially if it's important. So, but I did ask her a question about what it, does it mean something to be divided up in pieces? Does it mean something to you to be broken or divided? And she immediately had a deep response to that. Yes, she was going to school in Montreal, and she was confined to her apartment for a month and couldn't get outside. And she felt like a big part of her, we were from the West Coast, and she felt like she couldn't, like a big part of herself was left back there, and she felt profoundly divided, and she felt really uncomfortable. And the dream was a way of saying, this is important to pay attention to. And she made some life changes that really helped. And so that's a good example mm-hmm. of that.
So what I think is important there, one of the things is that your question was to her, right? What does it feel like to be divided? It wasn't, well, how does it feel like hacking up somebody, right? So our dreams, I don't want to use the word always, but oftentimes what's going on for us, right? So she was hacking up somebody. Well, she wasn't hacking up herself.
Yeah. Well, this is an idea from Gestalt, that every aspect of the dream, everything in the dream is an aspect of ourselves. And that I don't know if that's entirely true. I do think that dreaming can be about something larger than ourselves, but I would say that the characters in the dream Like we're not just the dream ego, our avatar in the dream. That's not the only aspect of us or that represents us in the dream. I think we tend to over-identify with the dream ego, and I think the dream ego really represents our persona, or just an aspect of ourself that we show to the world. And it's often an uncomfortable figure in our dreams or an incompetent figure. But there are other characters in the dream, I think, that do represent different ways of looking at the situation or different aspects of our consciousness, and that really it's mostly very expanding and enlarging to imagine into the other characters and the other pieces of the dream. I think they have a lot more novelty and a lot more to offer in ways that are enlightening, new.
When you talked about earlier on, and as we were talking, you talked about kind of how dream work was viewed, and how often sometimes it's perceived as obscure. But as we're talking here, part of me is thinking, well, a lot of this is, and correct me if I'm wrong again, but is interpretation, right? And so talk to us about, how does one learn how to interpret? Are there many ways to interpret dreams and so forth?
Yes, there are. Although we did this another study. I like to do research, I guess, but on what are the most common modern dream work methods, and really the whole field has gotten away from interpretation in the dream worker as expert, and I'll tell you what your dream means, to more of an experiential and collaborative approach. So what I do, and what I think most of the dream therapists that I speak to do, is really invite the dreamer to go back into and experience the dream, experience it from different perspectives, feel into how it might be inviting them to look at a different perspective. It usually enlarges your perspective, or kind of gives you a view from left field or from something that you wouldn't have considered. But then the dreamer is the one who offers and I wouldn't even say interpretation so much as the dreamer would then take the dream and live it forward, or ask a question like, what's this dream asking of me? What is this dream trying to show me? How is this dream attempting to enlarge my perspective here? And and if you enter a dream experientially, which is pretty easy to do, because there's such an all-encompassing experience when you have them. They feel so real. So what I find is that when you invite the dreamer to try on different places besides the dream ego, they'll get their own sense of what the dream is about. And as the outsider, I don't really feel like we're qualified, honestly, to tell someone what their dream image means. I think that particular way of working with dreams is quite outdated, like the dream dictionary, and a dog means this or a horse means that. It's like, it's not really, there's no universal meaning in dreams, because everyone has a different, say, someone could love dogs and someone could be terrified of them. So my dog and your dog in a dream are going to be very different. But a person's emotional experience, or what the feeling tone is in the dream and how that might be familiar, is a really generative way to get at what the dream is saying or trying to do.
It's interesting, as we're talking, I can't help but think about and almost feel what my experience was like working with that therapist and doing it was so friggin' intense. And I remember she told me, this is going to get intense. And it did. It got so why is it so intense?
Well, maybe you're intense.
Maybe that's true. But I think, dreams in and of themselves, when you go in there, they're so intense.
Well, I think it's because they use emotion as their base material. And so there is an intensity to that. And they really they cut to the chase. They go to the most, I think they really are trying to metabolize the things that have had the most impact on us. Like my initial dreams that I worked with, and I did therapy with a Jungian as well. And my dreams after we started in on the process were about, like I was born very premature and nearly died when I was born. I had to spend a couple months in the hospital. And then I also nearly died when I was 17 in river. And I had a dream that combined my early birth experience with this near drowning. So the two experiences in my life where I nearly died, and put them together into one. So speak of intensity. And yeah, the dreams, I mean, that experience, I kind of, put it away somewhere and thought, oh, I'm good. But you know what? Obviously it's got a big impact, something like that. And so my dreams felt like, oh, I've got an opportunity to metabolize this a little bit, and I'm going to bring this up to the surface, and I'm going to give you an image. And it did feel like one of the most profound experiences of my life. But at the time, I didn't know what to do with it. So it was very helpful to process the emotions later. And I mean, I think that's what dreams do, is they bring up unmetabolized feelings, and by their nature, they're often intense.
Just want to remind everyone that I'm speaking with Dr. Leslie Ellis. So how do you work? Do you work exclusively with dreams? Who comes to you? Yeah.
So I mainly now do nightmare consultations. So I work with people who have intense nightmares, but more often I'm actually teaching therapists how to work with dreams, and they consult with me on their clients, because to parachute in is, there isn't the relationship developed, and I'm, not doing so much one-on-one therapy anymore, but mostly teaching how to work with dreams and nightmares, and in a particular way that is quite simple actually to learn. I'm really trying to encourage therapists, even if they don't work with dreams per se, to work with nightmares if people have them, because they're quite treatable, and they can be quite a clinical problem. They're very highly linked to suicide risk, and they disrupt sleep, so they create a lot of problems for people. So mainly that's what I'm doing now, is teaching therapists how to work with dreams, and also have a specialty in teaching nightmare treatment.
So therapists are going to be listening to this, and they're going to be like, oh my God, this sounds awesome. Dr. Ellis sounds amazing, but I don't know the first thing about dreams, blah, blah, blah. What would you say to them?
I always say something to the effect of, if you're a therapist, you already have the tools that you need to work with dreams, because you mainly need to be curious and empathic and calm in the face of whatever comes your way. And the other thing is that dreams, I really believe they're attempting to metabolize emotion. They're meant to be helpful. They're not trying to be difficult. And there are some specific things about nightmares. Like one thing that's useful to know is that nightmares are a classic symptom of PTSD, and they will show you by the nature of the dream kind of their diagnostic. They can show you how far the trauma has been metabolized, because the closer a dream is to the actual event, the less it's been metabolized. And the more the dream starts to become symbolic and more of a picture metaphor, weaving in current time and current events, the more sort of actually dreamlike it is, the more you can say that they've gotten a certain level of integration of their trauma. And you can kind of track their dream content and see how well they're doing. And to treat them, you're essentially letting them dream the dream onward. It's not very complicated. So I guess I want to say, if there's a perception that dream work has to be really complicated and esoteric, it doesn't. It can be very simple. And it can go obviously very deep and get into all kinds of terrain, but it doesn't have to be that way. It can still be something like a part of what you do that isn't so complicated.
What's coming up for me is the more and more popular use of like psilocybin and psychedelics. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the relationship, the commonalities, if any, there exists between working with those?
Yeah, I think there is some crossover in that you get into in the psilocybin journeys into an altered state where there's definitely more that can come up from the unconscious, if you want. I don't like that word. It sounds like you're knocked out or asleep, but from the implicit, from the underworld, and so you're dealing with kind of bigger forces, and there is a way that I think that they touch on the same material. And in the dreaming state, your ego is kind of relativized and you're like not in control. So like a lot of wild things can happen in dreams as well. And then there's some differences in that, with psychedelics, it's a deliberate kind of journey into that other realm. And it's not something your body would naturally do. So it's a little bit more of a intensified, and I feel like it has to be used carefully. And I've heard incredible stories about how it can help. But dreaming is it's more of a natural trip of the same variety in a way, doesn't have the same intensity usually, and it's more about what your own body will offer you. Usually dreaming is paced in a way that you can metabolize it, though not always, depending on, if somebody's encountered things that jog their memory or upset their nervous system. The dreams can get intense, whether you like it or not. But there is definitely some crossover. I feel like they have, a certain amount of terrain in common. And yeah, they can open up realms that you wouldn't necessarily look at otherwise.
What do you say when people say, I don't dream? I'm sorry, I don't have dreams.
Well, everybody dreams roughly 2 hours and 90 minutes to 2 hours every night. This is, wow. It's just that they don't remember their dreams. And so that is fairly common, I would say, especially as we get older. Dream recall it kind of dissipates a little bit. But like you discovered, when you started to pay attention to your dreams and use them in therapy and really engage with them, you had more dreams and more intense dreams and remember them better, right? So I think there's a number of ways to catch your dreams if you want to remember them, but everybody dreams, and it is possible to recall them if you really want to, if you pay attention to them.
Awesome. All right, Leslie. So what's the best way for people to get in contact with you? Well, hold on. Before you do that, the book is called A Clinician's Guide to Dream Therapy, Implementing Simple and Effective Dream Work. We'll have that linked up here at the show notes page at the traumatherapistpodcast.com. Now, just quickly before we kind of close out here, obviously it's for clinicians. Mm-hmm. Okay, hence the title. But yeah,
although it's not really the language is accessible. Anybody could read it. Honestly, it's aimed at clinicians, but it's friendly.
Okay, awesome, and that people can get that anywhere books are sold. Okay, all right. What's the best way for people to get in contact with you and learn about what you're doing?
Probably my website would be the simplest. It's got everything that I'm doing and some material for people who are non-clinicians, but a lot of stuff for clinicians. And all the podcasts I've done, I think the original one that we did together is still up there, and lots of free resources, blog posts. It's really, it's the place. It's drleslieellis.com. You can maybe throw it on the link, but it's
definitely.
It's the place to start. And there's a way to reach me through the website as well.
Okay. And finally, so you offer courses for clinicians. Are these in person, online, both? What?
They're online at the moment. I'm thinking now maybe I could start offering some in person, but it's been, as we've all been through COVID, everything moved online, and it's a pretty accessible way to reach a lot of different places and people. So right now, it's all online, but hopefully we'll get to see some warm bodies in our room at some point in the next little while.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Leslie. Great talking to you. I'm so glad you came back on here. I just love talking to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you too. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. It's always a pleasure.
All right. Take care.
Okay.